So tonight I did a double feature of Anna May Wong silent films, both of which are expiring from Filmstruck in about 2 weeks. So you've got some time. Um, being a little proactive, and they were an interesting double feature to do because one was made in America and the other was made in England, and it was a really great way of comparing and contrasting the kinds of films um, she was able to do depending on where she lived. Much like Josephine Baker, Anna May Wong went to Europe after sort of not finding a good place in the American film industry in the early 20s, and then sort of split her time between the two places, occasionally making American films, occasionally making British films. She found slightly more stardom in her British days. So the first film I watched was 1927's Old San Francisco, which is directed by Alan Crosland, and really the star is Dolores Costello and Warner Oland. Warner Oland was Swedish, and much like Niels Astor, was often cast as Asian characters. Warner Oland claimed he had Mongolian ancestry, but this was never proven. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. All I know is he was Charlie Chan in a whole lot of movies, and it was really uncomfortable. So in this one, he is playing a half Asian, half Chinese, half white man who's trying to pass as completely white and trying to take over the Tenderloin as sort of the kingpin of the Tenderloin. I used to live in the Tenderloin. It's terrible. It's right by Chinatown, though. So the plot, basically, the first 10 minutes or so shows you how San Francisco came to be the city that it was at the turn of the century. You then cut to this old Spanish family who've had land in this part of San Francisco for centuries at this point, and this man, played by Warner Oland, is trying to take over that land in order to expand his empire. Obviously, this causes problems, especially when it is discovered that he is half Chinese and has this whole family that he's ashamed of. One of the other actors in the film is actually Angelo Recita, who was in a ton of films. He had a certain form of dwarfism, and so he was only about just shy of 3 feet tall. And you can see him in films like Freaks and what's the one with? Oh my God, he was in a Lon Chaney movie. Oh God, where'd it go? I can't find it. But he was in one of the Lon Chaney movies um, from the silent era, and he actually made movies for like 50 years. He is also not Chinese. He plays Chinese in this movie, so you're like, ooh. But Anna May Wong, from LA, but of Chinese descent, at least is playing like the one person sort of playing actually Chinese American here and there were a handful of other actors who were Chinese American playing the Chinatown residents. Basically, everything gets thwarted when the Great Earthquake happens, as we all know. The Great Earthquake fixed so many problems for so many people. So this film's very melodramatic and has a lot of sort of cringeworthy racial elements to it that you watch now and you're like, oh God. But it's definitely one of the better Dolores Costello silents in that she is so just beautifully photographed and so expressive in the moments where she gets to sort of almost overact, but it's that beautiful silent overacting that totally works and I love. So this is just sort of a not well aged race crime drama. Let's put it that way. You can watch it on Filmstruck for the next 2 weeks, or you can get it on DVD from Warner Archive Collection. The next one I watched is one of the most famous late era silent films. This is from England. This is E.A. DuPont's Piccadilly. And Anna May Wong is pretty much the star of this film. And you would think she's topless because of all the posters have her topless, but she's never actually topless in this movie, just so you know. It was restored by Milestone Films in 2004, and they added a new soundtrack to it. When it was originally released in 1929, it had a synchronized soundtrack and effects soundtrack that went to the various theaters that had the ability to play sound, because in 1929 you had a handful of sound films at this point. This was the end of the silent era. In it, Gilda Gray plays a dancer who works at the Piccadilly Circus nightclub in London, which is owned by Mr. Wilmot, I can't remember anything anymore, played by Jameson Thomas. He is her sort of boyfriend, manager, all kinds of things, boss, all this stuff. When her dance partner decides to leave, things go awry. There's also a very small moment with Charles Laughton. Early in Charles Laughton's career, he's quite good, but he's always good. And supposedly Ray Milland is in there somewhere. He was Welsh, so this is before he went off to America and became the Ray Milland we all know and love, but I couldn't find him. I think it was a blink or you miss it. So when the male dancer leaves and he loses all of his clientele, because apparently they were all there to see him, because he actually had talent and she didn't, she's just pretty, he decides to hire Anna May Wong as an exotic dancer. Not exotic in the striptease as we think now, but exotic as in she's going to dance in a traditional Chinese way, with a traditional Chinese costume, and that exoticism is going to get his money. Things get more awry when she and the owner start sort of falling for each other. Not really, she's just gold digging. And the girlfriend gets upset, and her boyfriend, played by King Hao Cheng, an actual person of Chinese descent, playing a person of Chinese descent, gets a little upset, and bad things happen. What I thought was fascinating about this film compared to the other film is pretty much everybody who was supposed to be of Chinese descent was actually played by somebody of Chinese descent. And what you'll notice from films from Europe in the 20s, 30s, 40s is you actually had people of the correct ethnicities playing the correct ethnicities. It's only really in America, mostly, that you see a lot of brown face, yellow face, etc., etc. Because we're a country founded by white supremacists, so you see it in a lot of ways. This had some really amazing cinematography, especially in the nightclub scenes and the close-ups on Anna May Wong, who was giving some amazing, amazing looks. Had some beautiful costumes. It was shot by Werner Brandes, who was mostly shot films in the silent era, but he made films up through the late 30s, mostly in British films. So what I found the most fascinating between these two films is that in the one film, Anna May Wong has a very small role as her character's name is Flower of the Orient. She doesn't even get a real name. And she's just sort of there. She's part of the story, but really not part of the story. She's just sort of there, sort of a villain. In Piccadilly, she's a main part of the story, but she's still exoticized and eventually, spoilers, murdered, and is basically the femme fatale. And so in both versions, she really doesn't get to be, the true female lead in this kind of era's female lead, because you didn't have femme fatales yet. You kind of had some vamps in the early in the teens, but the vamps sort of disappeared as the Roaring Twenties came about, and you had more of these sort of flappers and effervescent debutantes and things and socialites, and she didn't get to play any of that. Much like Josephine Baker, who also didn't get to ever play just a happy-go-lucky socialite, even though that was sort of the main role for a lot of these people. You were either the virtuous woman or the happy-go-lucky socialite, and they got to be neither. But at least in Europe, both of them got to really shine in lead adjacent roles. So these were fascinating. You can watch Piccadilly again on Filmstruck for 2 weeks, or it's on DVD from Milestone. and it's definitely worth checking out. It's a very interesting late era silent film, um, beautifully shot interiors, and probably top one of the most well shot of Anna May Wong's films. Like it's up there with Shanghai Express in just truly making sure it highlights her unique star quality. So I definitely recommend checking that one out. Old San Francisco, meh, um, but definitely check out Piccadilly. And again, they're both on Filmstruck.